pleased to introduce a passionate advocate for older adults, a successful entrepreneur, and the author of two books. The newest book, which we'll be discussing today, is Unforgettable Legacies, Invaluable Treasures Preserved for Future Generations by Jennell Williams. Welcome, Jennell. I turn the floor over to you.
Yes, yes. Well, good afternoon to everyone. And thank you, Jeff, for that introduction. I am the author of a newly released book called Unforgettable Legacies. And we want to really expound on unforgettable because one of my ways of relating to that is I think about Nat King Cole, who sang Unforgettable. Well, that's the main genre and the main mindset of this book.
Janelle, tell me what inspired you to write Unforgettable Legacies as a follow up to your first book, which was called Older Adults Should Not Be Left Behind.
Yes, I am very passionate in the area of seeing older adults to be able to enjoy a healthy older season of their lives. My first book, Older Adults Should Not Be Left Behind, that was the key to writing this book, Unforgettable Legacies. That book was written about 10 years ago. And I think that was the time that technology was just emerging and advancing. And many older adults, baby boomers, and some older adults from the silent generation um, have become quite overwhelmed just seeing the movement of how technology was going to impact their lives. Then we move forth from these last 10 years into a phase of technology that's just everywhere. There's no getting away from it. We did have options 10 years ago, and many of those manual and face-to-face options have gone away. So this book is divided into several topics, all enhancing unforgettable legacies, because I can start with my cover. Uh, my cover, my artist was able to create a set of hands where the older generation is embracing the younger generation. We come up with that title because my passion is greater now than 10 years ago. Um, and we're seeing the technology, the digital divide is happening more and more within our generations, and to the point that we're losing effective and valuable communication um, with different generations. Um, the older generation, um, because a lot of them are not technologically prepared, um, are sort of becoming um, divided or lonely, isolating themselves uh, because they do not know how to engage in these different um, technologies. Then yet you see the younger generation, maybe not all, but most of the younger generations are so busy on their smartphones and their computers, uh, because they have so many exciting new technologies that they perform every day. And it has resulted in a gap of communication, even in the families. The younger generation can get consumed sometimes 24/7 with technology and may not even think about how they have not checked on their parents or their grandparents, or they're just into their technology world. So the hands are saying that there's value in both generations, because I've learned and I've seen uh, things happen around me that um, older adults learn from the younger generation, and the younger generation can learn from the older generation. And the older generation brings to the table a lot of knowledge um, that can be very, very valuable to the younger generation as they grow older, or just in their everyday life. And if the communication is not there, we have a gap that eventually we will not be able to fill it. So this book is just kind of a wake-up call, trying to bring the different generations together. It's a wake-up call to older adults that have chosen a lifestyle of being sedentary, isolated, that they need to feel that they can still learn new things, and they need to still feel that they are a part of the society, no matter how fast the technology is moving. This wake up call is saying to a lot of the older generations that you need to search out areas that you can get support and training on the basic fundamentals in technology. The smartphone now is normally the main device that's used above even the computer. And there are a lot of applications that go forth in that smartphone on an hourly basis. You might be trying to perform one task, and there are so many other things that come up that can distract you. And you need to be, able to find uh, a place or a training center that you can sit down and get instruction, that you will not be left behind. Also, we dive into my history. Outside of being a writer, I have facilitated senior technology classes for almost 20 years, where I actually have classes at a local university, and we have excellent instructors, and we also have coaches that work specifically for the older adults. We see an older adult sitting, just kind of looking like they're not understanding the instruction, or they're just looking frustrated. We have a coach alongside of our senior instructor to kind of meet their needs on a personal basis. So that is very important, not to ever label ourselves as older adults that we cannot learn, or there are a lot of cliches out there, such as you can't teach an old dog new things or new tricks. That is not true until you buy into it. The world is moving rapidly, and those of us that are still independent and have things to look forward to, whether it's our family or some personal dreams. We need technology. We need to see ourselves valuable. We have lived through many decades of life. We've seen many technologies that have been invented, even in the last 100 years. Uh, so we have a lot to value uh, in our lifetime, but it's not over. It's not over. The time is now to make those decisions. So I've learned that a lot of older adults are not necessarily old. They could be early 60s or up to 70s or 80s. They just don't, they feel so, uh, they're not confident. That's the word. They're not confident in learning, and they want to rely on their children and their grandchildren to perform all these tasks, being even your medical uh, appointments all require technology. And so, they want to feel so that, their younger family will be there for them. But again, as we started um, this conversation, um, you have so much technology, and a lot of your younger um, persons are just totally, I would say, some addicted. They're on that technology all the time. And then they have, their personal lives, and uh, life moves quickly. And I don't think they purposely mean to neglect their parents. It's just that they can't keep up with the pace of time to do these things. So the responsibility falls right back on the individual, whether they're young or whether they're old, that this is no longer a hobby. Technology is not something that you just do because you like. We're living in an age that technology is major in your life. It determines your destiny and what you can accomplish, even on a personal basis. I also talk about just because you're 60s plus, even 90s, but you're still alive and you're functioning, you must have a vision for yourself. You must have a purpose. Um, you must have a plan. Every day you should have a plan, not just sit back and, you know, eat and watch TV because you're not filling your mind, with positive stuff. You must have your own plan. You must keep hold of your own individuality. Um, so we go into so many different areas, even in our classes. We utilize a lot of the school interns to be the coaches, and that gives them experience of interacting with the older generation. And what I have witnessed in class is really awesome. You see, just happy faces on the older side, even on the younger side. Oh, we need to hold on to that we both, all generations, are here for a purpose and have something to offer one another.
You speak so powerfully about your grandmother's influence. Can you share a memory of her that shaped your views on legacy?
Yes, my grandmother was the daughter of a sharecropper, and she had very limited education, but yet she was just determined to move her life forward. Um, I think her inspiration, she was, she was a Christian lady, and she always would play spiritual songs, and she would sing, and she taught us um, rules. She taught us things that would help us as we grew up. And I can say, even today, I still hear my grandmother's voice when I'm making decisions. And it's just so valuable to have that information uh, inside of you um, to help you just to carry on in your life. And even in difficult times, you have something that you can glean and you can reference. Um, so my grandmother was one of my, she raised me when I was, I would say, up to almost 7, but then I ended up staying with her even as I got older. And she was just, I learned how to cook. I learned how to shop. I learned how to interact with other people. I learned how to respect people. Just so many core values that I still implement in my life today.
How have pivotal eras in American history that you've lived through influenced you? I mean, you've had so many experiences. How did they shape your urgency to preserve older generations' stories?
Well, that's a good question because it's so much. Um, I guess speaking of my grandmother, because I didn't grow up with a lot of toys or a lot of things to keep me busy. I had to listen to her old stories. And as I walked in different, even the young um, years of my life, I was very observant due to what I was taught. And I was very concerned, but not having any answers because I was too young when I started school, the environment, the poverty around me, the racism, the Jim Crow. Um, I just watched things and those are memories. I can go back, I mean, decades and decades. And then on the other hand, I was fortunate to have good, dedicated teachers. Many of them attended um, Black institutions like Cheney University, Lincoln University, historical colleges. And at that time, the teachers had such a passion uh, for the kids that they taught, and they would sometimes move away from just a course outline, and they would share principles of life. We was fortunate. The city that I lived was where Martin Luther King um, came to study to get his degree in theology, and many of the teachers and family knew him personally. They rode the bus with him every day, and the teachers would share some of his perspectives in our classroom. And out of all of that, my observations in life, even though I couldn't find solutions at that time, I felt that I was destined to move away from some of uh, the beginnings that I had experienced and believe in myself. And I just continue working at it. And, there were doors that opened because I pursued. And I was determined to be a writer. I was determined to be an entrepreneur. And I just kept lining myself up with people that were good mentors, and I accomplished those things. So there is nothing that can stop you but yourself. You just have to be prepared to deal with all the issues that come with moving your life forward.
Um, Now, one of your book's major themes, again, was the digital divide. You've spoken a little bit about that. What do you believe is the biggest misconception people have about older adults and technology?
Well, there is a stale perception in our society. Whereas if you know, take time, I'm sure if you just look at anywhere from commercials or information concerning older adults, most of it hinges around um, the older adult's going to need a lot of help. A lot of times, they paint a picture of a fragile older adult, um, you know, that is not in the main part of society, but to the point where is they are going to be a burden in our society. And case in point, especially the baby boomers, we have one of uh, the highest numbers in population probably throughout history of this country, and we have caused the nation, to have some added issues, population, anywhere from healthcare and so forth. And so it seems like the information that we're getting, um, it's not that it's bad, but it's not encouraging enough for a person that is now living in the stages of being an older adult. It just kind of keeps them limited, you know. Pharmaceuticals, and I mean everybody's coming up with stuff, medical, and one of the areas that it seems like with this large population is growing, that's growing, is dementia and Alzheimer's. And if you watch enough information from TV or online, you're just going to buy into it. Not saying that there aren't some physical changes in your brain as you get older, but a lot of things are contingent, not just chronological, but lifestyle. So my book promotes lifestyle. And I can say that lifestyle has helped me even as a widow. I just couldn't, just lay in a corner because now I no longer have a husband. I continued in some of the visions and activities that I have been doing, and not just letting it stay at that level, but my vision has been, let's take it to another level. So the decision is really with the individual.
So it doesn't have to be where I'm isolated, alone, uh, don't know what I'm doing, don't have goals. You can still live your life regardless.
Yes.
And you also have or started a senior lift program. Can you tell me how the senior lift program came to be and how does it help bridge the digital divide for older adults?
Well, glad you asked, because I'm really proud of the Senior Lift program. We have our own logo that came about I guess that's maybe 18 years ago, when I knew, because I was very enterprising and busy entrepreneur and had major uh, contracts and so forth. But also I realized that I did a lot of traveling and just constantly on the go, that and then my mother got ill, and I knew that I had to kind of, you know, um, calm down and um, minimize my activity as far as what it requires as an entrepreneur. But I start just thinking about how fortunate that I have been, um, because at one point I was a bulk mailer, and we're like a premier bulk mailer, database management company through the state of Pennsylvania. And I it just made me think that I have been able to touch technology. whereas a lot of my peers did not have that opportunity. And I wanted to give back. And one day I just went out and visited a local senior development, housing development, and spoke with the program director. And she was very, very excited, of what my passion was to train older adults because most of the seniors there didn't have a clue of technology. So I just came in and myself, no charge, just came in and started a training program, and a lot of the residents attended, and they were able to get online, get email addresses, start emailing each other, learning the basic and fundamentals of the computer. And it was just a great, great feeling to be able to inspire someone else because I myself had the opportunity to prepare for technology some decades ago.
You also mentioned that older adults are visual learners. How can technology companies acco- accommodate that learning style better?
From a cognitive perspective, most older adults learn better when they can see and touch things. Um, I think some of the virtual education for learning technologies for older adults have failed because um, they can't feel each other. They can't, I mean, even though they know they're on the platform, but they know they can't touch each other. Um, and even the parts of the computer or the phones, and everything is in a diagram, but you can't touch it. We as older adults, we just love to touch. We love to feel, and that's a very important part of our learning.
Now, why do you think that the US struggles to honor and integrate the wisdom of older adults compared to other cultures?
Wow, that's quite a question. I think historically, our country has not been as committed to the older generation or felt as though that the older as people age, that they should be honored and you incorporate them into your lifestyle today. You think of countries like Japan and so forth. It's a natural. Um, I think, because everything is moving so quickly, um, just with that old mindset, you know, it's probably thought that older adults would slow things down and they could not move at the pace because they cannot a lot of times envision the value and the worth and the intellect that older adult still can bring to the table, regardless of their chronological age. Too many times aging is only looked at chronological. It is not looked at from a larger picture, the value, and that's why we write the book. If the older generations did not set the tone, did not put in foundations, what would we have today? Probably not too much. We just took their creativity and their mindsets to another level, even with funds and finances. So much have been left here for the younger generations to be able to grow on many cases, get education and, so many things. Everything has to have a foundation. And when you live in a country that's bypassing foundation and it's like, well, this is who we are today. I think that's the challenge we have sometimes with the AI. So I can see, I mean, AI can be very helpful, Joe, but I can see the missing gap in AI. it's still limited. It's faster, it's quicker, you know, but there's something missing because AI is no better than the human minds that they have utilized.
You beautifully described legacy as an imprint of investment. How can families start conversations about preserving legacies across generations?
Now, I think because we are in a technological age, older adults need to embrace the things that are going to benefit them. And I think families can help by encouraging their older family members to put their legacy, maybe utilizing a podcast and different tools that will preserve uh, the work and the treasures that they have left. And they, because a lot of times people think if I'm not famous or well known, I don't have a legacy. But no, it doesn't matter. Every person has contributed in some way in their community and in their society. And they have done something unique because there are no two people that are alike.
And how can younger generations actively participate to support legacy preservation?
Well, again, you know, they have to want to, they have to have a feeling, desire to get with their older family members, or not have to just be family members. It could be older adults in a church or some type of other community setting and communicate effectively. And maybe that younger person is the person that can really help them with the technology side of it, and really, engage in conversation and ask them questions of even things that they may be facing in their early years, or say they might be 20s, 30s, or whatever, that they can see a value in getting a perspective from their older family members or older members in the community. But it has to, I mean, you eat food because you choose what you like to taste, that you desire. My search now is, how do we increase the desire and the appetite for the generations to just want to come together? I think once you have that desire, there's nothing impossible that can be accomplished.
So there needs to be some kind of motivation for this all to happen.
Yes.
Now, going back to the book, your journey that you described from surviving breast cancer to launching a business is deeply inspiring. How did these personal challenges feed into your mission of empowerment?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because I had my mind or my thoughts set on um, becoming an entrepreneur since I was very young, maybe 10 years old and up. But life happens, and I was able to work for top corporations, and you know, and improve my career, meet people. And then I also had a period of my life that was a little difficult with my first marriage, of raising children, becoming a single parent. And when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and the doctors at that time really, prepared my family that, this was really serious and it was in a very late stage. I started to examine myself, you know, I'm thinking of all the things that I've wanted to do, but, I've always had to put them aside or delay them. And the question I ask is, if my life would not uh, surpass this diagnosis. If I would die, I've never done any, I just thought about it. And I was able to come out of this, I would say a miracle where I really had no, I had mastectomy, but no chemo, no radiation. It's 1983. And that same year, I just felt just that experience with breast cancer. I felt empowered and stimulated that this is the year I'm going to go forth and start working on my plans to become an entrepreneur. And the breast cancer occurred around in maybe March of 1983. By September of 1983, I was in Atlanta, Georgia at a major entrepreneur conference with
Mhm.
business women from all over the country, especially the West Coast, that empowered me, helped me. And when I left that session, I just implemented a lot of things, and I have been an entrepreneur ever since. Even today, I still do consulting for businesses, and do small contracts.
Wow. Now, going back to legacy, what advice would you give older adults who still feel that they have not left a legacy?
Um, that they need to find someone to talk to, okay? How do I get started? I mean, within themselves, they know that they have accomplished some things, but it just kind of gets hidden within themselves also. They need to find someone that's, whether it's a spiritual leader, counselor, a friend. Many older adults, sometimes, as you get older, you lose a lot of loved ones, which I did, but you have to be open to meet new people, and you just need to be empowered, and it can happen. You just, we don't, and then do your own research. Now that we do have uh, so much information on resources, we can Google things. We can just do all kinds of things, to get feedback that represents, where we want to go.
Plus, they can read this book.
Plus, you can read this book. Yes, I agree. And they can feel free. I have my email address in the book. So if they have questions or any ideas or suggestions, I welcome them to share them.
Oh, that's great. Going back to history that you've lived through, you discuss in the book, you discuss overcoming barriers like racism, poverty, educational inequalities. What helped you remain resilient through it all?
Well, we go back to my grandmother's voice. I knew she experienced some hurdles that were uh, harder than what I experienced. I mean, the stories that she shared, and I believe my faith. That I learned a lot from her. I activated my own faith, and I said my own prayers, and I had a great sense of observing what was around me, and I did not desire to grow older uh, and not producing something in my life. I saw it. I could assess things 5, 10 years old, and it's just hard to explain, how I was gifted to do that. But it was, I came from a very hard setting. I'll just, the best way to put it, it was very hard. I mean, I even have in my book just little things, if my family was looking for a place to live, they had to look in a certain section of the newspaper that said colored. I knew what it meant, to go on trips with my families. And there were signs that, this particular restaurant was not for coloreds. I knew the difference in the educational system, where we did not, many times, which it wasn't available, like um, top class education. But the subjects were the same name, but it was administered differently to those of low income and, different cultures and different ethnicities. Information just wasn't available. Tools were not available. And too many times, we were always told, that we should accept this. Um, and I did not go to college when I graduated high school because there was a conversation that I would hear around me that many African Americans weren't college materials. They shouldn't be thinking that way. Um, it wasn't all African American communities, or some communities had a real handle on promoting their families. But where I came from, it was just a lot of oppression, that people had been oppressed with. I can't do this and I can't do that. And my prayers just said, yes, you can. And I told my children too, yes, you can.
And was this all in the Philadelphia area?
Yes, not in Philadelphia, but
Mhm,
suburban. Yes. I
mhm.
didn't spend a lot of, in fact, I only lived 12, 15 miles from Philadelphia. And I was, I felt kind of locked in of not leaving the area that I was raised in. You know, Philadelphia was a big city.
Yeah. What role would you say community centers and churches and local governments play in supporting legacy building for older adults?
Well, maybe a lot of these spiritual houses are still functioning in just traditional ways, that that they have service and how they reach out to the community. And I would love to see some new ideology, some new ideas. Instead of just having feeding programs for the elderly, you know, um, if they could just learn of ways to keep them more motivated, more active. Traveling. I was reading an article. God, was it Turkey? It was a couple of the countries outside of the U.S. They had major programs for the elderly that, uh, whether it was basketball or soccer, or I mean, older people were participating in the mainstream sports events. You know, it's so much that the more active that the older adults become, I think that they will minimize a lot of the physical issues as well as the mental issues, and that's what But getting that message out, and changing some of the traditional mindset, even in our grassroots institutions, is a challenge.
So if a viewer is watching us and they're thinking, I'd like to help, what's the first step that they should take, you think, to support older adults in their community?
Well, they need to find a connecting resource, and Senior Lift would be happy to communicate with them, because that's what I am focused on now. Building that energy and looking at aging from different angles, you know. And I mean, if we all live, we're all going to be older one day. You either die young or you get older. So um, investing in the current older generation is investing in themselves, and they can feel free to email me at info at theseniorlift.com, and we can just continue this conversation.
And we have a question from the audience. What was something you learned about yourself or your legacy from this writing process?
For me, the writing process um, has really improved my um, intellectual abilities. Um, it helps me to select, not just use of the same word, but it helps me to think that as I write what I want to say, I have to have a variety of wording. Um, it's it just increases me as a person, and I find energies in myself the more that I write, because I don't feel as though I'm just writing for me. I publish a book because I'm writing to reach out to our society, and so it adds my legacy and enhancing my self-worth.
Now, for people who haven't yet read the book, what would you want to be maybe the biggest takeaways that they get after reading the book? What do you want?
Glad you asked that. The first takeaway, um, I think even before you even pick up a book to read it, you have to feel as though that you have a purpose and you want to use build on this purpose by um, getting different perspectives through reading and learning. And then as you read, I'm hoping that you can kind of put the dots together, that all the topics are still hinge around um, your legacy and who you are and what you have done and what you have contributed. And your legacy is so important to be correlated with the younger generations, because there are several categories of even the younger generation, um, that you don't have to feel isolated, uh, but you can just gain a freedom um, that you can reach out. There's so many resources, even libraries, community, you know, it's so much. You just have to just gain that purpose even before you open up the book, and just see what that book has that relates to the area of your life that you're trying to expand.
Yeah, and as the last question, and maybe it could have been one of the first questions, there are so many aspects to legacy. There's the financial legacy, there's the ideological legacy, family legacy. Um, what what do you say are the main aspects of legacy? Maybe starting to define what legacy is for people.
Hmm. That's a challenging question. Um, you have to search it out. You have to search it out. There's no other way of getting around it. You know, the word has power in it, but you have to search it out and see what piece of that legacy do you fit in. Okay. There are
Yeah.
people there are people that I know, I mean, they're, like, hidden, you would never I had a sister, um, she'd buy clothes, and then she would take those clothes that she bought, and she would update it. She would refine the style or add things to it. No one else in my family did that, okay, you know? You it's just it's there's no ending. There's no ending to a person's makeup, but if you don't go after it, you'll live a lifetime of not knowing, and then there's the end. But we owe more to ourselves than just the beginning and the end. Yeah,
Yeah.
because basically what she was able to do, she was able to take something that exists and take it to another level.
Yeah.
Then
So
that becomes your legacy.
oh, that's great. Yeah. And please join me in thanking Jennell Williams for this wonderful talk.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.